Well, hello there. Welcome back, our dear players. Welcome back to our studio. And today we invited our art director Zhenya Mishayev came to visit us in Moscow from Belgorod. Hello, everyone. He is not just an art director. He's also our lead UX UI designer, which stands for user experience and user interface, but I think that Zhenya can describe his role in the project much better than I can. It is very important, and I think today's episode will be extremely interesting for you. Well, I guess I'll start by telling you a bit about myself. Of course, yes. Yes, I've been working on the project for a long time, probably since 2012. For more than 10 years, I spent much of my time working on the environment of the virtual world, creating our maps for the simulator within this development environment. I formed the map department located in Belgorod, and also worked on graphic design and interface. Now I am the art director. Let's say my powers have expanded, and the range of tasks has grown. I have an arts education, specialized. So yes, I'm working in my field that you could certainly say I specialized in environmental design and painting. I'm from the virtual pilots community myself. I think that's important to note. So, I am part of a virtual flying squadron, been flying for a long time, generally. So I understand what a simulator is. And I think there are people who are afraid of you in a virtual world. We do everything fairly. Don't think bad about us. Speaking of roles in the project, how would you describe the changes in the approach, in the areas you're responsible for? Before we got involved in Korea and after, what is the fundamental difference? Yeah, probably this change happened a bit earlier. Even before starting work on Korea, we had some organizational changes in our studio, and some of them stood out more. Let's say some people significantly expanded. When I became an art director, I really expanded. I can personally say, yes, there are more opportunities to grow, but also more responsibilities. Yes, if we talk about organizational matters, what happened to us, starting with the new project, that's the main thing. We rely more on our leading specialists. These leading specialists have been working with us for a long time, and they have vast experience too. Previously, we had a more ultimate approach to task setting. It didn't always deliver the results we wanted, the necessary level of quality, although it almost always made us meet deadlines. But here, the price of committing an error is much too high. Since we're currently busy with a new project, in this project we need to take a new step specifically in the quality of the product. Such changes, they were essentially unavoidable without them achieving anything. Would have been impossible. Well, that's it. We've told a little about the internal stuff. Anyway, we gathered here today to talk about game design. Design of the new project, and in the Korea project, we have two key changes. There are actually a lot of them, but if we talk about the key changes, there are only two. The first one is a new incarnation of career mode, which is now not a pilot's career. It is now a commander's career. And the second change is in the in-game museum. We'll talk about these two. The main changes in the project design we will talk about today. Let's start first with career mode. The most comprehensive part of changes in the project. What is this? How it differs from what was before, although it's better to talk about it later. First, let's discuss what it is and what's the idea behind it. Yes, got it. Let's talk. It's an interesting topic, and yes, it's one of the key changes in our new project. Even though the mode is called the same as it was named at Great Battles, over there it is a different mode. We gathered all our experience and tried to present it in a new way. We want, first of all, to make an interesting mode. Since I've started talking about this, a career is usually something long by comparison, and we want to make it concentrated, intense, with the game's events, so you can enjoy the game even more. So you won't get bored there. Right. If we talk specifics, yes, our new game mode essentially represents an aviation regiment management system. The player will take on the role of a commander. It appears in resource management options. Management of the squadron structure. You will be selecting pilots for specific positions. Give a plane to a first, second flight, and so on. You decide. Arrange combat groups. Assign them on a mission, actually. Chronologically, the career will be structured so that the player can go through the conflict to the finish, like, specifically, this part of it we are discussing now, from the beginning to the end, covering the most key and significant events. You will be able to play and explore the history of this conflict. If we talk about studying the conflict, then in Great Battles, we also have a feature called newspaper releases. Well, they were coming out once a week, or once every 2 weeks, talking about what is happening in the world and at the front. It was kind of a nice addition. But in Korea, we plan that almost every game day will be accompanied by a newspaper release, which will be not just talking about the historical context of each specific day. You will be part of and create a certain ideological, let's say, context. That is, if you play as... If, for example, you select the red side, as for the Korean pilot, well, within acceptable limits, the articles will conform to the red side. With socialist epithets, appropriate judgments, and you also can go through an American pilot's experience and see the same events depicted from a Western side. And this comparison for you would be... It will be self-education, not only in the sense which events that took place there, what day the battle happened, but also how the world that is divided in half from two sides, from 2 points of view, was looking at these events. It's that experience, which we believe will be extremely valuable and interesting for the player, who can enjoy it and be engaged. You can play through this game mode not once, but twice, because it will definitely be interesting to see how it looks from this side and from that side. It's like, I don't know, play for the rebels in Star Wars. And then for the Empire, yes, and well, in this comparison, we can see drama, some interesting context. It's also about respecting history, yes, because historical events should always be considered objectively. Yes, if we talk about an objective review, then we already have several people working to ensure the events are recreated with the highest historical accuracy. Our chief historical consultant works with us, Victor Seknoy. He will also be with us on our next video recordings. Besides him, we also have Luke Wallace, our old friend, who is writing the newspaper articles with an American twist point of view, so to speak. From that perspective, from our side, we also brought Alexander Kadyrov, a person known to some who writes Soviet-style articles with a red twist point of view on all this. But if you look at it this way, although when you get to the essence, that is the essence of events, what happened here and there, the essence, of course, is the same. But you can see how cool it is when you look at the presentation, how media can present the same event differently. Well, a career wasn't the only option we considered. As the main game mode in 2022, this all happened back in the summer of 2022. We were facing a tough choice. What were the options? The choice was tough, yes, really. What were the options? The choice was tough. How did we choose it? Yes, there were many options. Let's probably talk about the most significant ones, right? The ones that we were seriously considering it. It's primarily a dynamic campaign. It was the main competitor, in my opinion. A dynamic sort of campaign mode. We were wanting to develop something. It's such a dynamic battle where actions affect the development of events in this war. It could be interesting in terms of gameplay to play a game, but it's absolutely not historical at all. This is the main reason why we did not choose this option. We want to tell a story, yes, show it, but unfortunately, a dynamic campaign can't help here. So, what else to say? There was an option of just a museum, a pure museum, when we wanted to focus on the aviation collection, to create a collection for the players, where you can admire your planes, your collection, take them out of the hangar, fly them, and bring them back. But overall, like part of the idea, we will still go ahead and implement it. We decided to move forward with it, yes. What else was there? There was an idea of an MMO, of the war. But here too, basically, similar reasons why we didn't go with it. What else did we have? History of Wars. We wanted to create a mode that was focused on the study of historical events. It was an interesting idea, where you can chronologically see the battles on the map. A tactical map with action markers. A certain period. There's a timeline where you can browse and see what events took place during this conflict, and pick one time frame and example. Decide with one or the other. Something like that. It's like an encyclopedia of events, but basically, we probably just gave up on the idea of a dynamic campaign, but kept most of our ideas. And actually, we gathered them all. That's how our mode was born, which we're creating now. Even though it's not called career, it actually It is a combination of different ideas, a sort of combination of some new mechanics. I think and really hope that we will manage to create an interesting mode. If we're talking about how this happened with the new... A good illustration of the new approach. How we manage key processes in game development now. This was not the ultimate solution. First, the collection of ideas was organized, and then these ideas were refined, implemented. Well, practically a complete game design for each of the proposed modes. Everyone who participated in the process, who wanted to be part of this process and showed certain skills for it, carefully evaluated it and expressed their criticism, certain things were happening. Disputes. I have to say that I personally found myself defeated. I lost. I was for the dynamic campaign. But the weight of the arguments was... Arguments in favor of the career, of course, outweighed everything else. I had nothing to counter this. And in the end, I fell in love with the idea myself. But it should be noted that, of course, that was the toughest choice, in the sense that it would have been easier to make that dynamic campaign. Strangely enough, despite the fact that we already had a career once, the way we're doing it now is the best option from those we had on the table. It's the most challenging option technically and in terms of content. In short, as they say, we created problems for ourselves and are heroically overcoming them ourselves. I hope the result justifies it, because what we're trying to do is truly awesome. On that note, could you please highlight, what are the new key features? Yes, I wanted to talk about some mechanics. I will not really go into too much detail now because a lot is still in development, and I don't want to say anything unnecessary. Scared. But it makes a lot of sense. It seems to me these are the key points worth talking about. These are exactly the factors that make our new career different from the old one. First of all, in my opinion, this is what... Our new career should not be boring. The career in Great Battles is, I wouldn't call it boring. It's realistic because the work of a combat pilot, unfortunately, it's routine. Not that cheerful. There's a lot over there. Flights. Flights sometimes are the same. Often flights without any combat engagement. And actually, you have to live this life as a pilot flying at the front lines. You risk your life every time, every single time you take off in a plane, even without encountering the enemy. And in reality, it's dangerous. But for us, it's still a game that we want players to enjoy. Therefore, we want to implement this routine. That's why we're implementing a feature like gameplay concentration. Focusing on key events, on key interesting events, while skipping those periods without any intense combat. And this, in my opinion, is one of the main reasons for that. Important points, although probably not the biggest at first glance. What else do I want to say? Maybe now we'll touch on the subject of the interface, which is also very significant. How to say? Overall, our experience is brand new. We are creating an entirely new interface, and a major part of this interface is the career mode. So we want to create a nice and pleasant interface for the player to enjoy our game. And we want to make a user-friendly and understandable interface, because the mechanics are actually quite complex. There we will manage resources, fuel, repairs, management, basically by the team themselves. The aviation regiment, forming squadrons and also wings. And all of this, it needs to be somehow, some way, It should be accessible to the player. For the average player, we want the flight simulator to open up not only to hardcore users, but to users kind of not experienced in such a complex genre, and actually, so that an ordinary user can easily understand and navigate through this interface. In this mode, and in a sim in general, you can gauge our boldness here. Our bold move, because on one side, we are talking about making an already complex game mode even more difficult from the point of view of game mechanics that are involved there. And we are also talking about that it should ultimately become more accessible from the user's point of view so they can see it and not get scared and run away, like, broadly speaking, opening something like mathematics software and saying, "Whoa, no," and I want to prevent that from happening. But nevertheless, specifically, Zhenya, with the help of our interface designer Denis Shushalin, is currently working on this task. Because basically, it's not the gods who make the pots. It can totally happen. And precisely, this is a task known in modern game development as user experience design. How to make the complex become understandable and the complex accessible and convenient. So, because when you have the game mechanics are presented in a convenient way, even if they are complex, they will still be interesting to you. You will enjoy trying them out. Anything else you might add about the career, like what? Well, come on, share one more feature, anyone. At the career, yes. The career we are building can be generally divided probably into two broad areas, so to speak. That's basically, let us talk for a bit about what we will have in the game. Yes. Because we were just talking about everything related to the interface. And something important about in-game. Because we are getting new features of the game itself. Large formations of airplanes, which is important, yes, and the time skip. When traveling long distances, it's not always necessary to fly the entire route. You can skip part of it. And for a career, we believe that these innovations are particularly important. Again, we're pursuing the same goal. Remove some of the boring stuff, and meanwhile, keep the gameplay filled, with events, making it packed. And I think that's an important feature that you can mention specifically about the time skip. Yes, skipping time is very tricky because if anyone played Great Battles, remember that there are two options. You can start a mission in the air right before the target to complete the task, and anyway, you have to fly back. On the other hand, in this case, you miss such an interesting part of the mission, like the takeoff, because the takeoff and joining your group and flying in a group towards the target, it's another important phase where, again, you might get attacked. You encounter enemies, and it turns out that in this mode you miss them. Here. So, when the time skip feature is implemented, you have 3 key moments of any flight that you elect to undertake. All right, the group's taking off. Then completing the task over the target. And then accordingly, this does not work out as 3 separate missions, because if you took off and during the process of takeoff, let's say, someone from your flight was damaged, this, of course, should be reflected in the second stage when you are completing your task. If these were just separate missions, it would have been too complex to keep track of. By skipping time, it allows this, but again, those who want to keep everything ultra-hardcore, they always have the opportunity to refuse the time skip. And it will have a big mission, like an hour-long mission with a flight, all that kind of stuff. Again, talking about our prospects. So if we're dealing with the Pacific, with their 2-hour flights towards wherever some Akagi is sailing, this here is a really crucial moment. We have talked about how difficult the choice of the career mode was. And this, in general, for most players will be the main game. Experience, but nevertheless, it is not the only new feature of the design of the product we're making. And the second innovation is a museum. Actually, it's not even a game mode, no. Let's say it's more like a portal that takes you into our game world, which tells you more about what is in it, what you can encounter. And Zhenya will tell us now about how did this idea even originate? The idea was, if I remember correctly, mainly Zhenya's. The museum as a whole. And what are its features? And how will it be implemented? Well, let's start with that. What is it simply? Yeah, recalling how it was is tough. Everything got mixed up, really. It's hard to remember what happened before. Actually, we are discussing new ideas, new features, not only in the process of developing the new program. And in the process, we used to discuss it before, it just wasn't always possible to add it, and now in the new product, and we can do it again, and do it the way we've wanted to for a long time. This idea has been around for ages, and perhaps its essence and meaning are that, greet the user with the game right from the start, not just with some interface or buttons like, go here and choose, etc. You aren't flying, you just turn on the game and you start to enjoy. And we want our users to enjoy our game constantly, not just during the flight. And actually speaking, we've implemented it a long time ago. When the player launches the game and sees a 3-dimensional aircraft in the main menu, we decided to use this place better in a bit different way. Actually, how will it look? What will the player see when the player launches our product and reaches the main screen? Yes? He will see the aircraft as before, but it will be more than just a plane that he sees. Around this 3-dimensional space, a certain infrastructure will be created. All right, I guess I'll start off with the layout, yeah. We wanted the museum architectural to be. Design is very important. This is an architectural object, and I want to get back to our experience. I've already said that we try to use our experience and our successful practices, yes, will be used in the new product. We once developed a product for World War I called Rise of Flight. And actually, there was a lot of interesting stuff in it. A feeling, a sense of warmth, coziness, some kind of intimacy. We want to revive this feeling and, basically, to get the same emotions. The same emotions? Well, better. So, accordingly, it will greet you. An interface in a certain design. It's going to be something like that. Remember those badges and medals that we had in the main menu, yes? On the screen here, there will be something similar. These won't be awards like before, but similar elements will be present. And in fact, the player will see a hangar where his plane will be parked and can be viewed. You will be able to actively interact with it. Right now, you can't do that in Great Battles, for example. You will be able to watch animations of this plane, get into its cockpit and check out the equipment, view the reference info on this particular device and the museum. Part of the interface will be the data sheet, that's what we called it. A data sheet, strictly speaking, where you will be able to see information about the aircraft. What information? This is historical data. I think we have enough details, yes? The story of the aircraft. These are its technical characteristics, a description of the instruments. With various diagrams, yes, that's right. We could probably even show something, like some screenshots. And we'll see. We'll also attach a description of the controls. What's most important for you, the player. You won't need any more to look somewhere besides the game itself for information on the forum or YouTube. See how to fly this aircraft. Its jet engine controls. All this information will be in the game, pretty conveniently presented. There will be a launch description, also details about the aircraft. The relevant key input combinations for this aircraft you will need. All of this will be gathered in one place. Well, but it's important to note that another significant feature of the museum that is planned will be... What's there? It's a museum, so it tells you about the objects. It gives you info about them. It's not about just one object, but a large group of objects, yes. In the IL-2 series of games, in our new game world, the museum will tell about all the dynamic objects that are in the game. I mean, these are planes, these are vehicles, maritime objects, ships, radars, anti-aircraft guns. Well, maybe even the military theater will be presented for one of the objects. For now, it's an idea. We'll see how it will work out. The question is, can it be properly shown? And there will be for each game object the information relevant to it. We won't show you how to control a truck if it can't be controlled in the game and is only operated by AI. However, historical background on what this truck is will be there. Why we believe that this specific truck was important in the Korean War. Why it is important as a game object, plus its technical characteristics. Yes, you can indeed check out this truck, spin it around in 3D. A camera, and even including some animations. Why this has become possible. Earlier, this was basically impossible because the level of graphics detail, the graphics from 2013, when we made the first secondary objects like trucks, we did not have any plans to show them all that closely in highly rendered detail. No, they had simplified visuals back then for performance. The idea was that the player will see them from a large distance only. They weren't super detailed because, well, the idea was that the player would look at them from above during the mission. It's been already 10 years. In 10 years, the industry's perspective on this matter has changed. With the free camera, you can look at any object in the game. And since we're doing them detailed anyway, detailed ground vehicles and all the objects in the game, we can now show them in the museum without any shame, unlike before. There you go. And basically the idea is that once again, like in a career is something where the player, while playing, expands his level of knowledge. The museum, too, same thing here, but in a different form, like an encyclopedia. You expand your knowledge of the technology and the military equipment in use at that time. We want to give you the maximum useful information in the game itself, and besides what Daniel said, maybe we could even add information about ammunition, perhaps not on... Right there, the decision hasn't been made yet, but it's important because when you're setting up a plane for a flight, you choose ammunition for it. So I want to know what this strange abbreviation is. What kind of ammunition, and we don't need to go somewhere far. In the game, you'll be able to see and learn all of this. The idea is to provide the player with the maximum, the optimal amount of useful information. With this new museum, what are the biggest difficulties encountered while developing this particular game mode? In the museum, right? It's hard to highlight something.
This is probably difficult.
Specifically. In terms of design, right? We have certain technical limitations that pose challenges, and maybe this is a topic for another conversation. As for the design, this is a challenge for a UX designer, yes. For a UX designer, yes. How to make it as convenient as possible. Simple and accessible. Because there is a lot of information, and we want to present it as conveniently as possible. And actually, it's always a problem, but in my opinion, we're doing good. It's pretty good. I like how it's turning out so far. Yeah, definitely you could say that. I hope players like it too. You know, we forgot to mention this about the museum. How would an aircraft be presented in the interface now, in the new title? Going into the career mode, for example, is such a major key moment. And now, from the main screen, we want the player to be able to take off quickly, more than before. We have a quick mission, of course. Yes. This isn't exactly the same quick mission as before. It's not a mission constructor like now, it's just one button. For every aircraft, a special mission will be designed, or mission set, where you simply enter the game and click a button to fly it. This is more along the lines of the modern, of the modern gaming industry. Having such a button is important. Also, there will be another new gameplay mode, yes. Like trials or exams. Yes, let's call it that, when the player is getting used to the aircraft. There will be 4 training missions for each aircraft. A player who completes these 4 missions will receive a specific medal. For the record, we will consider he mastered this plane. That way, we want to introduce the player to each plane through a small museum-like mode. This should be interesting and not boring. No boredom here. No, we don't want that. It's turning out pretty cool. Nowadays, museums are developing the theme of interactivity. Museum interactivity, like they set up a screen in a museum, and there you can see how there is a video recreation of the Battle of Agincourt in October 1415 in France, something like that, right? And here, with this feature turns out to be interactivity within an interactive sort of game. Yes. Another interactive layer where you, the user, can interact with an object, a virtual object, accordingly. Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that the museum is actually about more than just that. What to watch, well, and read, and get acquainted with. It's also about trying something new, yes. We think this will also allow newer players to get into the game and access it more easily than they could before. Into our simulated world, yes. And for experienced players, it might be interesting simply because you can collect such badges there that mean you mastered something. It's always fun when you can earn something in the break between multiplayer battles. Here's what we're thinking. Modern flight simulators, they do have a high entry barrier, and in response, we want to try to give newcomers a warm welcome. A slight reduction of the barrier without any simplification. Our flight simulator remains a flight simulator just the same, but we have several levels of mastery. The museum is really the very first step for players who are just getting to know the game, who are just getting to know the genre. It will be hard for them to play in career mode. And very hard in multiplayer. He will be in the museum, press the button and play. He will pass the exams, complete 4 missions, and receive an award. And that's already a motivation for the player to keep learning the game. to get familiar with it. And basically, it's a little perk that a novice player will receive. But as Daniel says, it's actually interesting for experienced pilots too. We're trying, actually, you see. Since we are not talking specifics, we are trying to rethink our product a little bit and make it kind of wider, not so narrow for a very narrow audience, but wider without simplifying its core. And this is a highly complex task. Yes, but we seem to have figured out how to do it. We'll try to open these gates a bit wider. I think I've just had a game designer's epiphany. We'll need these badges, and we'll make them achievements in Steam too, yeah. Great. Yes, I think that's an excellent idea. I think it'll work well. I like that a lot. Join us on our streams, and you'll participate in the design process. Also, by the way, on a related note while we're here, a difficult question in the design of this game mode was more of an artistic question, namely, designing the very space where an aircraft is displayed in this museum. It looks like it's not a big deal. Draw a hangar, place an airplane, and make it look like in the spirit of the times and at the same time unobtrusively, so that it harmonizes with the graphical user interface. But it is difficult to achieve all this at once. Well, of course we did not spend all the time on this, but I think we were returning to this task for more than a quarter of the year. Yeah, we were working in parallel. As Daniel says, this task was not easy to complete. It took a fair bit of time, and a professional architect was actively involved in the work on this. We are very serious in your approach, even in this detail. Yes. As a result, a virtual but actually very interesting architectural object was created. It could have even been on some exhibition. You might have sent it to a contest. It might even win something. Ha ha ha! And we would have earned an award for sure. Yes, indeed. About this, maybe. That's all for today on the gaming front. We've shared the secret we wanted to reveal. And now, as promised, we'll move on to the Q&A session. We take everything. Now we are collecting questions before every release of a developer brief from our potential players, and we answer some of them. We naturally respond only to questions that matched the condition, and the condition, a question should match the topic. We're talking about game design, so a question about game design in Korea. So there's like this red folder, see? In this red folder inside, there is a sheet of questions that we have gathered. Who's answering? Sometimes it's me. Sometimes it's you. Here is a tough question. Will there be a career mode in co-op? I want to play the entire game with a friend. Yeah. This is... maybe he's reading our minds. We have this idea, and not just an idea, but a strong desire to make a career playable cooperatively. We probably cannot answer whether it will be available at the time of release, right? We probably won't make it in time for the release. Look, right, here is the deal with this. To make this sort of thing really awesome and fun, involving cooperative gameplay, you know. The interaction between players should be as convenient as possible. You players shouldn't have to bother with something like server hosting, white IP addresses, all that. Yeah, where you have to call the provider and say, can you please forward the ports? And he will tell you, please pay an extra $100 a month. Maybe we will agree. We need to host servers on our side. It is certainly possible, but it's not exactly to everyone how it will pay off because it may lead to significant expenses due to its high cost. Why? One game server for a sim uses far more computational server resources than a game server for a simple shooter game, right? And that's why we need to be sure that we won't just shut down this cooperative play in a year, because with this sort of thing, we are losing money. So this is our plan. Korea releases, we are watching what the demand is. If it is substantial and enough to pay for such. Cool things, to organize the gaming process using our servers? Yes. We want to refine and implement this. In general, game design, I won't lie when I say, when we develop career game design, as we are doing now, it is done with this thought in mind. To add co-op to it. Even the missions, like the ones developed by Victor Seknoy's department, they develop the missions, and they understand that at any given moment, they should be ready and able to rework a mission so it can be played in multiplayer mode, yes. Next question. In the new career, will it be possible to manage the flight personnel that are in the unit you command, control their professional growth, maybe give some awards, maybe sending someone on vacation, someone who's tired, all that stuff? I see, it's written in English there. Yeah, Daniel translates on the fly. We're gathering the questions. I just read them out in Russian. Half of them are in Russian and half in English. Yes, of course. This is one of the new career features. Managing your own pilots. A pilot will get, let's say, really tired. Yeah, it's not advisable. For you to send a given pilot out, say, on 10 missions in a row, no. You will need to form flights for the unit under your command, and accordingly, choose which pilots need to have a break from combat. It is also possible in some cases that some of your pilots may be hospitalized. So there is a pretty deep management structure, not just the pilot. And also management of the aircraft. So yeah, that's all planned. Next question. Will there be a limited number of bombs, rockets, supplies, and delays at the airfield? Will the airfield status take into account a tax on it? For example, if the fuel dump at our airfield was bombed, will there be less fuel in the regiment? Yes, this is a short answer. Ha, ha, ha. This is also one of the key features of the new career, the resource management. With this, you will manage the resources. You have to request. Request the resources that your unit needs. There is a limited quantity. The better your regiment does, the more possibilities you will have to make requests. Accordingly, it will be necessary to see what is needed most urgently for your unit. Fuel, spare parts, or ammunition. And order those things that your unit needs? Yes. And I think that a feature like a destroyed warehouse should have an effect on the amount of it. The amount of these resources at the moment, so yes, at the least we are considering such a mechanism. All right, good. Let's move on then to the next question. Will there be an opportunity for the player to start a career mission at the parking area with other pilots and their planes? And then taxi from there to the runway and already, accordingly, fly the mission. Not like now, when the start might only be on the runway. Yes, let me be brief. That option will be available. Well, there is a limited one in great battles too, but in Korea, we'll have a new system. You probably can explain this one better. Yes, we are planning to add for Korea a completely new airfield traffic control system, unlike what is in great battles. For the simple reason that airfields with their many taxiways Sometimes more than one leads to a runway. They have them in great battles too, but they appeared there literally. In the last couple of projects, right? However, unlike before, the old simplified scheme in Korea won't work any longer, so it was introduced. An entity which we call an airfield taxiway dispatcher, yes. And this dispatcher, his job, he controls the traffic movement of airplanes on the taxiways. And accordingly, all the airplanes, the artificial intelligence that controls them, follows these commands, and the player will listen to them as well. Everything here will be implemented through radio comms, the new radio comms scheme. But we're jumping ahead a little because we'll have 2 dev brief videos dedicated to these topics. All right, that's good. Let's move on, then to the next one. Will we have a more advanced, a more in-depth air traffic management system in our career? In other words, will there be a case, you know? This question was asked in English. Yes, accordingly, where we can open some kind of dialogue, and to submit a request accordingly to the dispatcher about that. Where is our nearest airfield? Where is the nearest enemy? Any instructions if lost, vector to target, vector to base. All this. Well, you told me everything. Yes, yes, written in such detail. This is written right here in English. This is also a new system that will be in Korea in our new project. I think this is what was really missing for a full pilot's gameplay. Yes, there will be a new communication system with the dispatchers. Here, with the navigation points, and consequently, it will be linked to our new radio communication system, which is a very interesting topic for later. I think, yes, we will reveal it later. And a pretty advanced system is planned. Well, maybe you could explain in more detail. Well, everything will be interconnected with an aviation control radar station. And in Korea, this topic was developed from both sides. In great battles, we had radars, but they were mainly as a targets. Here it will be an object with its own functionality, its own script with which the player can interact. And not only the player, artificial intelligence will also interact with it. Yes, all these great features, dear viewer, everything you are asking for, yes, they are definitely in our plans. To ask for a heading, for a target, heading towards the nearest airport. Well, and all that stuff, yes. He will warn you if an enemy is approaching. The radars will accordingly have a coverage area. Correspondingly, we hope to make the landscape affect this. Well, if someone, some enemy suddenly destroys this radar, then all these wonderful opportunities will disappear. You'll lose them, but only if there's not another one nearby. What is important is not an abstract system out of nowhere, but a specific object in the world with which there will be missions in Korea for knocking out enemy radar stations and to cover your own radar stations. That is, it will be just another full-fledged piece of the game world, around which a specific part of the gameplay will be centered. Let's tackle the most complex questions, all right? Some questions might seem a bit uncomfortable to answer, but you have to answer them. Will there be an opportunity in your career to fly as a regular pilot, not a commander? No. Unfortunately, there won't be such an opportunity. The career has been planned this way. Well, we have talked about this many times. We want to make an interesting mode. An interesting and action-packed gameplay mode. Because our gameplay in the career mode splits into 2 major parts. This is core gameplay. It's when you're in-game, you're flying, crash landing a plane, and the metagame. What happens in metagame? With this career management, and accordingly, this career management is presented in such a way that you almost immediately start focusing on resources, even though we still have... There will be a certain learning curve, a small one, but nonetheless, the player immediately starts engaging in specific management processes. So, and accordingly, if we are talking about ordinary pilot flights, where the pilot does not make decisions, does not handle management, accordingly, then we will be deprived of this meta part. The gameplay will then be boring. Yes, it might be realistic and plausible, but it would be boring, and we really do not want that. So we decided right away, we need to start from the beginning with the full functionality of this mode. So, no. You can't play as a regular pilot. You'll play as a commander from the start. Yes, but what's the issue here? It was interesting to fly as an ordinary pilot. And naturally, the question is what? Is it possible to grow from an ordinary pilot? When you start as a wingman with no major responsibilities, then you lead a pair, lead a flight, then become squadron commander, then deputy regiment commander, and then respectively regiment commander. So, for all of this to be interesting for you at each step, certain things need to be implemented. With this, each stage should have its own unique sort of gameplay. As usual, it is money. And basically, if everything will be all right with the release, right? Well, we see this as an opportunity for further development. But on the first step, for now, we're going to start with the most delicious game we can think of, which is Regimental Commander. Because there's nothing tastier than being a regimental commander. Well, unless being a general, but that's a bit off. But it's no longer interesting. Send out tank formations. A nuke over here, a submarine over there. Well, we're playing with individual aircraft right now. There are other games to play as a general. We're already running out of time, so let's take a couple more questions. He's asking, can he expect a complete translation of his career into Russian? Of course, the whole game will be localized. For all the languages we need. And Russian, of course, especially. Good. So, and accordingly, let's answer this question. How will the interaction between the leader and the wingmen be structured in career mode? Well, between the leader and the wingman, again, we touch another related topic. There will be a new radio communication system. It's an absolutely incredible, fascinating topic. Right now, I don't want to talk about it, yeah. And accordingly, there will be an interface to control this system. So yes, of course, you can communicate with your wingman. It is worth noting that once again, I think those who said, "Why are you doing tanks?" should understand us now. Because generally speaking, the new control system for wingmen in Korea, it is inherited from the management system of a tank platoon in our previous project, known as Tank Crew. And accordingly, this system of commands will be more advanced. The main reason we basically dived into altering artificial intelligence in Korea. Because in principle, things are not all that bad in artificial intelligence. Everything there, in general, is mostly fine, except for the moments when we start ordering. Wingmen using the command menu. After all, the system is quite outdated, designed primarily for giving commands without a radio. Because let me remind you, this system was made in Rise of Flight. So back then, certain improvements were made for IL-2, but still, it wasn't enough, and now we are fully planning to redo it. We've got a whole year ahead of us, and so we'll have Our programmer, Vadim Vereshchetin, he will work for a whole year on basically just that. Here, I hope it works out. And the last question of the day. In our careers, when we play for the red side, we'll be able to act only in a commanding capacity of a North Korean regiment. Okay. Or also maybe for volunteer regiments, Chinese
all right,
and
I get it.
Soviet
Got it.
volunteers somehow. We are making a historical reconstruction after all, I would say. Therefore, naturally, all the facets of the communist side will be in the game. There will be pilots from both the Soviet Union and China, and also North Korea, respectively. Well, maybe you could explain this situation in more detail. Well, it's quite simple here. It turns out that in Korea, in the career, you can play on the American side. When you represent the red side, the socialist one, you can serve naturally in a North Korean regiment. Or you can choose, for example, a Soviet air regiment. Because generally speaking, organizationally, Soviet air regiments with all their structure were based there. Yes, there were Korean stars on the planes. North Korean Air Force, but generally speaking, the whole structure of the air regiment, it was Soviet. The commander was Soviet. All the technical staff there was Soviet. All of them were called advisors. Well, there are, of course, certain ironies in this. Yeah, well, here's the thing. With the Chinese air regiments, the story is almost the same. Same thing, only it wasn't called that. We're named not advisors, but volunteers. That's probably where we'll end today. This isn't the last time we'll be talking to Zhenya, because his area of responsibility is wide, and he will definitely visit us again. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for your attention. We hope to see you again. Please watch our developer brief and subscribe to our channel if you liked what you saw and heard today. Please give us a like, don't hesitate. And thank you, Zhenya. Thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me. Make sure to stop by again.